discuss the Pepfar Community Grants Program. Top opinion leaders, civil society groups and politicians gathered in Washington last week to advocate for U.S. Congress to reauthorize this program ahead of the 30 September deadline. Now, this event was hosted by the BroadReach Group, a South African implementation partner for Pepfar that runs the second largest HIV treatment and care program globally. Now, Pepfar's program provides funding to community-based organizations working in districts with the highest HIV burden in South Africa. BroadReach co-founder Dr. Ernest Darkoh joins us now to explain why Pepfar reauthorization is key for South Africa. Doctor, good afternoon. Welcome, Dr. Darkoh, to eNCA's Today. Now, this presidency emergency plan for AIDS relief, Pepfar, is very important, according to you. Why is it key? Why is it still key for us in South Africa?
Well, thank you for having me. Pepfar is absolutely critical because as a global public health program, it's probably been one of the most impactful programs on the planet. Back in 2003, you probably had about 50,000 people on HIV treatment on the African continent. And through the efforts of Pepfar and efforts like the Global Fund, now we have over 20 million people on treatment. And that's more than half of the global total of people living with HIV. And just for reference, from the beginning of the HIV epidemic, we've had maybe about 85 million infections and 40 million people have died. So currently we have the same number of people alive who are HIV positive as those who have died from HIV. So it shows you how important it is for us to address this disease. And Pepfar has been the reason why we've made major ground against this disease on the African continent in particular.
And then what's the outlook like? Will it be reauthorized?
I am quite confident that it will be reauthorized. And have very, very few doubts that it will be, just because of what the program actually does, how impactful it has been, but also the consequences of not reauthorizing means we lose all these amazing gains, which are tangibly and practically saving lives as we speak. So I'm quite sure that whatever holdups there are will be resolved and that the program will be authorized.
What are some of its salient deliverables that will help us win the fight against HIV/AIDS into the future?
Well, one, just getting people on treatment. I mean, South Africa, we have the single largest epidemic in the world. We have 8 million people infected out of our 60 million population. Just for reference, the United States, with a population of about 340 million, has about 1 million people only infected. So we have 8 times the number of the United States. And you can imagine what this spells for a country like ours if we don't get on top of this epidemic. And therefore, when you look at the progress of Pepfar in South Africa, we have a number of districts in the country that have met or exceeded the 90 UNAIDS targets. In fact, we have a number of districts that are reaching the 95 targets, almost reaching that target as well. So this is really, we've had massive reversals and deaths from HIV in these districts where we've worked. So the deliverables are really tangible in terms of us, in essence, saving our country. And therefore, it's undeniable. But the big work is ahead still. We still have about 3 more million or 4 more million people to find and get on treatment in the country. And then we have to maintain everybody, in essence, for the rest of their life on these treatments, which is not an easy task. And this is why we need further support.
8 million people out of 60 million, that's quite a huge number of people. There has been a lot of interventions and initiatives over the years, Doctor, to try and really roll back the progress of HIV/AIDS. Are we winning? I mean, 8 million out of 60 million, that sounds like a big chunk of people. Or let me ask you this way, in your view, where are we failing?
Well, I think where we are failing is prevention. When I got to South Africa in 2006, we were looking at about 4 million people who were infected. And now, fast forward to today, we have that number grew to 8 million. So although we have 5 million on treatment, which is the single biggest program on the planet, the ball has grown bigger in front of us as we've been chasing it. So we need to be much more aggressive about making sure that ball does not grow any larger. Otherwise, when you start getting to talk about treating half of the population, it's just not feasible. And this is why I think we are primarily still failing in prevention, and there's certain key groups that are driving that. The youth as a particular group. We have other key populations that are really difficult to treat. We're talking about sex workers, men who have sex with men. These are populations that are very difficult to treat, and we need, again, very creative, effective, and aggressive strategies to tackle this epidemic and bring it fully under control.
Yeah, just to wrap my head around the numbers, 5 million people are on treatment. Are the 5 part of the 8 million or in addition?
The 5 are part of the 8 million. So meaning we have about 3 million more to find at this point, but that 3 million is growing as we speak. So this is why prevention is really critical.
Yeah. Does Pepfar support prevention?
Yes, it does. So Pepfar has the DREAMS program that is very much oriented around prevention, in particular in young people and in young women, who tend to be where the most infections are occurring is in young women. And so Pepfar has some very targeted programs for that, and the Global Fund, which also contributes very significant amounts to the HIV fight, is also very much focused on a number of key prevention programs, in particular looking at key populations.
Yeah, I mean, you said young women are more vulnerable, and therefore you are targeting that. But, I mean, young women don't sleep alone, so to speak. They are exposed to that by men who don't want to use condoms, for example, or use preventive measures. Does Pepfar or do Pepfar programs also target us guys in this case?
Yes, so there's special programs for men as well. And it's a full-on strategy addressing men, addressing women, addressing key populations. It is all systems go in terms of going after the root cause drivers for this epidemic in South Africa. And this is why sustaining this response and maintaining this response is absolutely critical, because these are things, it's not easy to achieve these gains. It's taken us 20 years of work to get to where we are. And the benefits we're seeing now are the compounded benefits of the 20 years. So and anyone who understands the concept of compound interest, if you lose it, you have to start from scratch again, right? So we've gained great momentum, but the road ahead just gets harder. Imagine you're halfway up the mountain. It means you're very tired, but doesn't mean you're done. It means there's now a steeper mountain ahead, and you still have to keep going. And this is why we can't start to feel, oh, the job is done, or get relaxed about where we are and feel and congratulate us too much, because the road ahead is still difficult.
Yeah, very briefly as we conclude, Dr. You're quite right. I mean, as you climb one hill, there's more to climb, as President Nelson Mandela told us when he was still around with us. So there's many more hills ahead. When are you going to hear whether or not Pepfar has been reauthorized? I understand from my introduction that the deadline was the 30th September. When are you going to find out? You said you're confident, not hopeful. You are confident that it will be reauthorized. When will you know?
I really cannot answer that definitively, because those are deliberations going on in the United States Congress, of which I have very little control at this particular point. But I know that the urgency of the deadline is known by all, and therefore my guess is the leadership of Pepfar are very, very heavily engaged in trying to get this thing over the line in time.
We wish you well. Thank you very much, Dr. Ernest Darkoh. He's a co-founder of BroadReach, which is the implementation partner of South Africa in Pepfar. Thank you for talking to us. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that United States Congress will reauthorize this very important vehicle in the fight against HIV/AIDS. I mean, Pepfar stands for the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief.